everyone. My name is Matthew Brown. This is Abby Corbin, and we would like to welcome you again to Cheer New York, My Black Experience. Today, we have with us the lovely Hysik Bushilla.
Hi, Maddie. Hi, Abby. Thank you for having me today.
Hi.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, your position, how long you've been on the team?
Yeah, so I've been on the team just a little over a year, and I was just newly appointed to the social and cultural director position. And so my background in cheer, I've been cheering for 11 years now.
Getting up there.
Yeah. And so that kind of is what led me to coming back to cheer, and coming to Cheer New York, because I was out of it for about 5 years. And, I was looking to reconnect with cheer, and being new to New York as well. I knew that it was an experience that would make me go back to kind of my roots and what I know and reconnect with that side. And I know that for me, I come from a charity background in cheer. And Cheer New York really spoke to that for me, was that charity aspect of what I knew as a cheerleader. When I was in high school, we did Toys for Tots, we did canned food drives. We had what's called a sparrow child. So each year we appointed, a single child who had some sort of medical issue, and we would raise money as a school, and the cheerleaders were in charge of that. And so, I did a lot of things for charity and for the community, and that's really what brought me back to cheer, was that aspect.
So when you say going back to your roots, so how exactly, especially at that time being a young Black man, how did you get started in cheerleading? How did that process start?
So kind of starting cheer, it kind of just happened. I feel like that's how cheer really is you kind of fall into it. For me, I was just waiting after school, waiting for my mom to pick me up, and I would, hang out with my friends who were the cheerleaders. And the coach was like, can you do a jump? Can you tumble? Just see it. And I was like, okay, sure. And, I was able to do all of these things. And she was like, I'm going to put you as the put on. So all I did was the stunting. I think because at the time, I was more insecure about being gay than I was about being Black.
Okay.
So I don't think for myself that I had a Black experience with cheer, because it was more of a gay experience.
Gotcha.
Because I went to, I would say, a fairly diverse school for the area. It was lots of Hispanic, and it was Hispanic, white, and Native. And so I got to see people on the team who were similar to who I am, I guess.
Okay.
So it wasn't blonde, white Barbie dolls. It was people, who had brown skin like me and dark hair. And I think we had one girl on the team who was blonde, and what people think of when they think of cheerleaders.
That all-American look.
Yeah. We weren't, I guess, all-American cheerleaders. And so that was very eye-opening to me, because my first experience of cheer is Bring It On.
Right.
You see that divide.
That
white girls and the Black girls, and that's it. And all three schools, they were very diverse in who they had on their teams. And so I think that's something that I'm thankful for.
So for me, that's interesting that you said your experience was more about being a gay man than being a Black man. At what point do you remember that the Black side taking precedence in regard to a challenge or, you know, something changing from, you know, because you said you went to school, it was very diverse. So at what point did you feel that my Blackness, something's changed? Something is not as, you know, in high school, I was, you know, everybody was different and we understood that and we accepted it. When did you realize that it wasn't being as accepted?
You know, I think I've always had trouble identifying my Blackness.
Can you, I know we know you a little bit more, so we know that you are of mixed race, Black, and can you explain when, because everybody's like, what do you mean you're Black?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they can understand where we're coming from in the discussion.
Of course. So I'm Black and white, and I grew up very white. I grew up suburbia, you know, my mom looked white woman haircut and stepdad's white and all my family's white. And so being biracial, you end up assimilating to that because that is what I was around. That is who I knew. And my Blackness was secondary. And I think I didn't notice my Blackness really until I became an adult. And I see that my town is diverse, but it's 40,000 people and it's conservative. You know, I didn't really understand diverseness and actually being Black and the stigmas that come with that until I moved to San Francisco.
Oh, okay. Wow. Wait, did you move from?
I moved from Oregon.
Okay, self-explanatory there.
So I moved from Oregon to San Francisco, and that was the first time when like my gayness wasn't up front and my Blackness was up front.
Okay.
And so that was really when I, you know, started having that experience, and that was when I was 19, 20.
So that's deep.
Right. So being that you say that, so let me ask, have you ever had an experience or moment where you felt like you had to put your Blackness on hold? So you said that when you moved to San Francisco, you felt like the fact that you were a Black man, not a gay man, came to the forefront. So did you ever feel like at that point there was a moment where you had to put the fact of being that you accepted at the time, okay, yes, now I am a Black man, yeah, I'm realizing it. Did you ever feel like you had to put that on hold for any reason?
No. Thinking about it, no, I don't believe so. I think I had experiences where I started to realize that being a Black man, I was looked at differently. I think the first time I went into Saks, Fifth Avenue with my friend, and they were following us around. And that was like the first experience, you know, that I've ever had of like, that's a stigma that comes with being Black, you know, and
right.
To me, it was just like so crazy. And I guess because I grew up so white, I never felt like I had to put being Black to the side, because I think when you grow up in a white family, in a white household, that's when it was being put aside.
Okay.
So,
that makes sense. So can I ask you this, and let me dig a little deeper into that. So once you realized it, and being that you grew up white, have you ever felt as if you purposely put your Blackness on hold? And not saying that you did it because you don't accept it, but you finally saw the difference in how you were treated as a Black man. So being that you were raised in a predominantly white household, have you ever purposely pushed it to the side because being white is your first experience versus being Black?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that I still struggle with. You know, I'm 24, and this is the first time that I really felt an identity with the Black community. I think oftentimes being mixed, if you aren't around one or the other community, that's who you end up, being with. And because I was with white people, it's two things when you're mixed. It's, you're not Black enough and you're not white enough.
I get it.
And so like, I feel like even now I put my Blackness on hold, when I'm applying to jobs sometimes. I'll, instead of putting that I'm just Black or that I'm just white, I'll put 2 or more races. And for a long time, like when I applied to college, I just put that I was white because I didn't like identify with being Black. It was because it was something so foreign to me. I didn't really have Black friends in high school. I had one Black girl on my team.
So I have a quick question, interjection here. So when you were younger and being raised, you were always aware that you were biracial? If you understand the question I'm asking, like, were you told at a young age that, or maybe, I'm not sure, you knew by looking at your parents that one was different than the other? I'm just trying to get an understanding of how, what it feels like, or, what, like you said, there's different things that happen, and how you've come up is different. So I'm just trying to dig in so that we all can get an understanding, a little better understanding. We'll never understand 100%. But you get what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think I always knew that I was biracial when I was younger. But I was born in South Dakota, so a lot of Native Americans, Indigenous people, and they would assume that I was Native. So it was always like racial ambiguity to everyone. I think that's what it was, is people would just be like, in whatever area, that's who you belong to. And so, I was always made aware that I was mixed.
Okay.
I was from a white family.
I get it. Because I can understand there are people of color, biracial people. If you live with one parent or the other, it goes back to what everybody talks about, nature versus nurture.
Right.
So naturally you are biracial, but nurture, you were raised with one set of parents and not the other, or one family and not the other. So I fully understand it. I'm just, trying to, wow, that's deep. Because, what was I gonna say? So ambiguity, diversity, moving to San Francisco. So, and you said sometimes you identify one and not the other, but when did you decide or maybe you're still deciding, was there a time when you said, I'm Black and I'm proud? When did that happen in your life?
I think recently.
If it did, it may not have. I don't want to put.
No, I think it's something new. It's for sure being that I'm Black and I'm proud. Because I think throughout all of this and what's happening within our nation, it's that all of our stories are valid and all of our stories speak to our own experience. And even though my experience may be different, it doesn't make me any less Black.
Correct.
And that was something that I constantly felt up until recently, was that, I'm not Black enough, so I can't relate to what's happening, or I don't understand because it hasn't happened to me, but my story's still valid, and I'm proud to say that I'm Black, even though I may not have had those experiences. It doesn't make me any less.
No, it doesn't.
Than anyone. So. No,
I believe me, because everybody doesn't have to have the same Black experience
to say that they are Black.
Correct.
because even both of us, we both identify as nothing but Black, but our experiences may be similar, but they will never be the same.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
But sometimes, you know, people in society like to tell you how you should feel or how you should identify or what your experience should be, and not acknowledge the fact that we are all made differently. We are all different people, whether Black, brown, yellow, orange, and all of our experiences will always be different.
Because we always have to, we have to understand where we all come from. You know, your experience is valid. Like you said, it's valid. Your voice needs to be heard. And one of your stories or something that has happened to you may help educate me in something and understand maybe how I deal with my friends who are biracial. You know, I don't understand everything, but speaking and having these conversations the same way of me giving conversation last week about my experience and Matthew about his experience, we can all learn. We can learn where we may have biases that we didn't know that we had.
Correct.
Towards others, you know, and so that's why, like you said, all stories are valid and they help us all move forward in these times where we are now.
So about what you said, going back to what you stated. So now, do you feel like, now that you know that you accept it, do you confidently say in these moments that you are Black and you identify and you know that your Blackness connects straight to your identity?
Yeah, I definitely do. Because, yeah, I'm confident in my Blackness and I'm confident in my identity now. Is it something I'm still working on? Yeah, because it's unlearning patterns, unlearning behavior, unlearning thought processes.
Correct.
And
which can be hard sometimes.
Yeah, it's very hard. You know, the first racial experience I ever had that like impacted me was I was out with friends and this guy gave unsolicited, you know, touching, and I turned around and I said, "Do not do that." And you know, he called me the N-word, and it was just like I blacked out and threw hands, you know, like and it was the first time that I was like, oh my God, like this is something that's like actually happening, you know, that
because it finally happened to you personally.
Yeah. And I see people who wrote posts, you know, about how like women were raised versus how men were raised, and like the lists that are given to like Black men about like, you know, when you go out in public. And I think about when I was young, my mom never
told you these things,
never had those things. And so you have just this idea of what a racial divide is until like you actually experience it. And that was like the turning moment of was like, wow, like I am Black, you know, I identified that, but accepting that has been, you know, a new thing.
Go ahead. Oh, and the reason I'm in, wow, because this is my question to you then. Which one was a harder hit moment? Accepting or wanting people to accept that you are gay, or having people accepting that you are Black?
Gay.
You know, like which one, you know, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, good question.
I would definitely say gay. I think gay was like the harder of the two, for sure. I think it's just based on because I assimilated to being white. I used to relax my hair. I used to tan like the girls on my team because that's what they did when like I'm I'm brown skinned. I have no point.
Like I was naturally tan.
Yeah.
I had no reason to be doing that. And so coming out as gay was like a lot harder because I never felt like I had to, I guess, come out as Black, but I think acknowledging that's part of my identity, just like being gay is a part of my identity. I would say gay because I feel like that's a forefront for me, even though I am Black. I think people see that I'm gay and then they see that I'm Black and then that I'm a man. I don't think they see that I'm a Black gay man.
Which is funny because most of us, like for myself, it's that I, like you just said, I'm a Black gay man. They're first going to see the Black first, then the gay, which is a different experience to hear you say that you feel for you. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
Which is funny.
It's interesting.
That is very interesting.
I think it's mainly because I think it ties back to like that racial ambiguity is that people don't necessarily see me as Black, or if they are Black, that's what they see me as. If they're Cuban, that's what they see me as. Like they fit me into whatever is
box they want to fit you into.
And so that's why they see the gay first, because they don't have that filter, I guess, of like, oh, he's something else and he's something else.
Right.
It's not an immediate check. It's not.
Yeah.
It's easier to put you in the gay box than it is what race you are.
Yeah, it's exactly that, because I think not a lot. I mean, 99% of the time people are like, oh, what's your ethnicity? What's your background? Blah, 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 blah. And I've come to the point where I don't mind, but there are things that are toxic about that, as well as people identifying you as being exotic. That's something that I come across often is, wow, you're very exotic, like, how'd your parents meet because of that? And it's interesting because from my friends who are Black, I haven't heard that experience from them.
Right.
My friends who are biracial, that is something that
you hear all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you talked about going to the store and having someone follow you, would you say that that was the first time that you experienced prejudice because of your race?
Absolutely.
So which one would you say, being that, like you said, you feel like people see gay before they see Black, which one do you think you experienced prejudice with first, being gay or being Black?
I think being gay, because at such a young age, I was already expressing like the gay traits. Being gay.
You were being you.
Yes. You had a little bit on the wrist.
Yes. Exactly that, and
a little extra switch in your hips.
No sugar. Terrible.
I grew up like in ranching and in farming, like rural areas, and so like I was like, I want to do Broadway. I want to be on stage. I want to be singing. I play violin. Like, I was doing all of these traits that are associated with gay men for some reason.
Yes.
But
or the feminine, as people say, all of these things are feminine.
Yeah. The thing is, though, is I experienced being Black as soon as I became an athlete. So when I was a gymnast and when I was a dancer and a cheerleader, that was off, how fast can you run? How high can you jump?
The stereotype.
But at that time, when that happened, you say that now, but did you realize that at that time that's what was happening? But you can look back on it now and see that everyone else was noticing that what those biases, again, those quiet biases that people, and stereotypes that people don't realize they put on Black folks, people of color, that, like you said, how fast do you run?
How high can you jump?
You must be an athlete, like naturally. Like there's a gene, there's some gene we get.
Yeah.
What's crazy is I really noticed it once I started doing cheer, and I'm a good cheerleader. I would consider myself good, but I was the jumper on the team. That was what I did. And
yeah,
oftentimes coaches would say, you know, do basketball, come play basketball for me. You know, you're 6'2", come play basketball for me. I was 6 foot and 140 pounds. You know, I was gonna break. What, you know, like I could not. They wanted to put me on football because I could kick, and they wanted me to be the kicker, and I was gonna be the tallest and the smallest. And that was like the first time that I kind of was like, oh wait, this is because I'm Black. This isn't because I'm gay. This is because I'm Black. And that is when I noticed it, but it's really come to light looking back, for sure.
Because at that time you weren't looking at it that way, because you really at that time hadn't had a Black experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But now that you've had a Black experience and looking back, now you understand and get what the situation was at that time.
Yeah, and it's just crazy to think about these little biases that happen and that are woven throughout your entire life.
Yes. Because they're actually woven into society.
Yeah.
And that's the way that people automatically think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's from state to state, all across the board, no matter where you're raised, where you're from, the implicit biases, the stereotypes, they are there.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is that they are there because, like I said, you know, I was born in South Dakota and then I moved to Oregon, and state to state, those implicit biases, it ended up being POC. It wasn't Black biases, you know, because it was against Indigenous people and it was against Hispanics. Mm-hmm. But that was like the first time that I saw race.
Okay.
Was between POC. I never really understood race and a racial divide between Black and white until I became an adult.
Wow.
So
experience, because like you said, because of where you were. Question though, when these things were happening, did you or were you able to have conversations about it with your mom, your family? As now, you know, these things are starting to happen to you, and so was someone there, if it wasn't them, that you could talk to and figure this stuff out, or was it something you had to deal with on your own?
No, I didn't really have anyone like while I was growing up, and I still find it hard to have someone now that I'm older too. You know, my mom tried her best to understand, you know, but she almost kept me sheltered away from the Black community just because of my dad and the stereotype he ended up falling into.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
And so I think that's why I didn't realize that I was having a Black experience, and I didn't have anyone to talk to about these things.
Correct.
Because I was sheltered away from that.
She just didn't know.
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So that's why I was, you know, if you went back, so now as an adult, do you have adult conversations about these things, or do you still just, you know, go to your friends? Like some people, like my mom is gone. As I got older, I had different conversations with her as I became an adult that I would have never thought. And I had that when I was younger. So that's why I was wondering, now that, you know, you're 24, you know, you've done some things, you moved around. Do you have conversations with her now about anything that has happened or how you feeling now? Like, you know, does she know, or, you know, any conversation?
Yeah, I mean, our relationship drastically changed, you know, when I became an adult, and I confide in her about these things, and sadly, a lot of it is about being gay and that aspect of my life. I think it's because I hate this, but I grew up like without understanding race, like. And so because of that, I think things that may have been racial and may have happened, I didn't notice.
Gotcha. Yeah, it went right past you. And
because of, it's, you know, it's like white people saying, you know, I see no color. Sometimes it does become that you don't see any color because at least that's how I grew up. My mom didn't emphasize those things.
Right.
I guess.
Which in some ways is a good thing, but in some ways it's not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it ties into who you are and what you would experience when you got older.
Mm-hmm.
And also understanding that we want things to be where people don't see color, but the reality of the situation is there are people who will always see color.
Yeah. I think that's something that I've had the conversations about now, is that people will always see color. And I've talked to a lot of like my biracial friends about these types of topics, because I feel like I connect differently. Like there's a different understanding. One of my friends, Allie, she's from Georgia and she's hilarious. And we would talk about being Black and our different experiences. And, you know, one time she said to me, I hate the white man, like I hate white men. And to me, that was such a shocking statement, because I was like, I don't understand this. I was like, Allie, I said to her, I was like, why do you hate white men? And, you know, she gave me the list of reasons.
The rundown.
Yes. And I was like, okay, here's the thing. I understand where you're coming from. I grasp the idea. Let's say that. I don't understand. I grasp the idea.
Mm-hmm.
I said, the thing is if you want to be treated equally and you want it to be respected, like there can't end up being a disrespect towards one or the other, because I think that's what continues the divide. And she was like, well, you know, she continued and she was like, this is why I still hate them. And I was like, if you're continuing to seed that hate, that continues to seed their hate towards you and towards Black men and towards the Black community. And I think that was the first time that she had that click of like, we can't seed hate back and forth, even though there are reparations that we need to go through to be able to make sure that there are racial justices though.
But I think with some people especially, and you said she's fully Black.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So sometimes, like back to what I was saying, mm-hmm. what you're saying is true, but once there has been a precedent set across the board for years and years and years, it's hard to revert back to trying to be the way that we feel like society should be, because in our heads it should be that way, but when you step outside the door into the real world, it doesn't really always work out there. Even though it is true, but it then becomes a back and forth, a push-pull. I should do this, but this is how the world is, but I should act this way, but this is how people are going to treat me. So it then becomes hard.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah. I don't understand that. Because I haven't experienced that. And that's what you just said was exactly what she was saying as well. Is, you know, after she came to that realization that, yes, you know, things shouldn't be that, but that is that.
No, I was just gonna say, just because, like Hysik said, you haven't experienced it, but there are many Black men, 100% Black men, not by, you know, mixed men, who haven't experienced a lot. Yeah. So, like, I try not to be like, well, how could you understand? You ain't never experienced. There's a lot of things I haven't experienced, but that doesn't mean I don't have empathy for it. Right? That doesn't mean that I don't acknowledge it. It doesn't disappear just because it hasn't, you know,
it doesn't fully apply.
It doesn't fully apply to me.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, at any given point, it could come directly at me. Like when you went to the department store for the first time, you went to Saks and they started following you around and you were like, hold the phone.
What's going on?
Like what, like what's going, like how did this all of a sudden become part of me? Like we said when, you know, during these social justice times, Matthew and I have always said at our town halls, it's like we walk out the door, the first thing that they see is the color.
Right.
Period. I don't even have to open my mouth. I could be the most educated or the most uneducated. I could be, you know, I could actually not even speak English, but the first thing that I walk out the door, you see me
is black.
Mm-hmm. And I'm still trying, as I'm listening to you and you're telling us how the ambiguity, the differences in Oregon, in South Dakota, how I'm trying to even imagine how I could have like not realized, even though everyone says little kids don't really pay attention to color, which they don't, they're taught what it means, but to even just look in the mirror and realize that I'm a little different than everybody, was there a time when you just said to yourself that I look a little different, but it doesn't mean anything? You understand what I'm saying? Like, or was everybody so different that it just
didn't matter?
It didn't matter.
I think it was everyone was so different that it didn't matter. But I noticed back with my friend Allie, and she said to me, she was like, "You have it easier." She was like, "You have it easier." She was like, "You are light skinned," and I think that was the first time that I was like ever called that.
Light skin?
Yeah.
Which was a reference to actually being black.
Yeah.
Which is within our culture, the colorism part.
Yeah.
So it's like, not only, poor Hysik, not his papa white, but Hysik, gay man, biracial man, and now you gotta deal with colorism once you realize that, you know, in my black community, they still have a problem with me because now I'm the light-skinned version. That's
yeah. So when she said that to me, she was like, "You have it easier. You're light skinned. You're more like palatable to white people." And
wow.
I think that's I was kind of just in shock, you know, like hearing this because it's true. It's absolutely true because it speaks to my entire black experience of growing up white, and because I didn't look black to them, or if I was white enough that it's okay.
You weren't black enough.
Mm-hmm.
Or it was a question mark.
Right.
That quiet rumor behind the scenes. Yo,
what is he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was very much that, and you know, I feel like that it's just, I hate that idea, but it's a fact that I have to just live with that.
So how do you take that and flip it around and show your pride in it now that you know that not that you know that, I mean, you always known it, but now that guess you have more comfort, or what is the word I'm looking for?
I think you said, I think that was it. How do you, because for you, your experience was different and you didn't come to the realization or really start having a black experience until becoming an adult.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you are an adult, but you're not that far into adulthood. You're only 24. So how do you show pride in that? How do you find pride in that? What are your feelings on that with pride, and now just having the experience of realizing, oh yeah, I am a black man and I'm a proud black man, right?
You know, I find pride and I'm proud through honestly just being myself. Just
best way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Just
being myself. You know, I think I constantly felt like I had to fit into some sort of box of being gay, of being black, of being biracial, all of these check boxes that I felt like I had to hit. You know, I'm proud because I'm biracial, and I do have a different experience, and I get to speak to that, and I get to help educate other people, and I'm one voice of a million voices on the Black experience, and bringing racial justice and making sure that things are right in our world for our people, for our future, for our now. You know, and I find myself to be more of an advocate than I think ever before. You know, I talked about being involved in charity, you know, since high school, and charity goes beyond just an organization. It goes into the community, and you know, I think for a long time it was hard for me to somehow ostracized, and I think now I finally feel like some sort of an acceptance because of all of these little things that each of us have experienced, and that it does relate to this overall arching theme of a Black experience, and that all Black people have come together now during this time and are standing with each other, and there's solidarity, and you know, there's these own issues within our own community, but we're working to better our community as a singular whole unit. Right. And then we can work on
this side.
I mean, you think about it, we got to stay alive first.
Right.
Then we can live. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, we have to make sure that we stay alive, and then we'll work, you know, on our own little, like my mother used to say, you know, what's happening in the house. We'll deal with the house matters later. Mm-hmm. But we got to make sure we can live in the community
to make that happen. So by you saying that, who do you feel has inspired you to be proud within your racial identity?
It's gonna sound so corny. Beyonc.
Perfect.
You know,
innovation.
You know,
okay. And why?
Yes.
I say Beyonc because it was the first time I saw someone who was similar to me, you know, because she was lighter skinned and a big celebrity, you know, Destiny's Child. That's when I started hearing her. And I think it's because she's such an advocate for the community. I think, and that's what I want to aspire to, is someone like her who, yes, she's a performer and she does all of these talented things, but beyond that, like she speaks for her community, and she uplifts her community, and she gives back. And I want to be able to do that, and she shows pride in her Blackness, and she stands in her Blackness proud and strong, and she's strong Black woman. And you know, it shouldn't be that where there's strong Black women, but she's a pillar of that, and she's a voice, and that's what I want to be. I want to be a strong Black man, and a pillar for my community, and a voice for my community, and not any of these other things of I'm palatable to white people, I'm palatable to Black people, any of these things. I'm just a strong pillar for my community, and I think that's what she represents, because she speaks to the Black community, but she speaks to almost all communities, you know, across the board.
Your story will help someone else. You know, always be proud of, you know, what you've gone through. You've made it this far, and your story will help someone else continue on. You never know how your story's like. I never knew, you know, little things that would happen to me, people would pay attention to, and your story would help somebody else. So just know I know you're striving for representation, but believe me, you are representation right now.
So because you said that, let me just two more questions. When was the first time you experienced joy within your race, since you more so newfound of realizing your Blackness? When was the first time you experienced joy in it?
I don't know if I've experienced it yet. I mean, I think it's because it's still something new and I'm still coming to terms with it, you know, because it's a part of my identity and it's something that's kind of just been there, but it hasn't been at a forefront. You know, I'm happy to be Black and I'm proud to be Black.
But you haven't had that feeling that comes from deep within.
It'll come.
It'll happen.
And you'll know when it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So if it hasn't happened yet, that's okay.
Some tears might come with it too. That's when you'll really know.
Yeah. You know, and I'm striving for that. And it is time. It is these things because I've said it over and over. It was gay at the forefront. And that was something that came first. And I think that's the hardest thing is like, that is what came first, you know, and I wish that I could have had that joyous moment of being Black at a young age or recently. I don't know. I guess it's something that I haven't thought about much, to be honest. I think.
And that is totally possible.
Correct.
That is totally possible. I mean, if you think, I'm trying to like bring it around to my experience, and I'm saying, okay, think about it. My grandparents are West Indian, straight from immigrants. But I don't really identify with that side. However, when I'm around West Indians, I'm like, hey, I'm West Indian. I know in there somewhere I'm West Indian, but it doesn't come to the forefront. You don't hear it in my accent. You don't know it right away. But I am. So I fully understand in a way what you're saying. Like it hasn't hit me yet. I haven't, I can go on Eastern Parkway on West Indian Day Parade and dance around and say I'm West Indian, but is that really a feeling like I'm, did my pride of that really come out? So I will give you that, let it marinate, work itself out. And I bet you the day that it happens and it pops out, you'll be like, yo, I gotta call Matthew and Abby and tell them what happened.
We'll bring you back. We'll bring you back and let you have a blooper of your experience.
Most likely, you guys will be there.
Yes.
So in one word, as we close out, in one word, at this point, how would you express your Black boy joy?
I think the first word I would probably say is freedom.
Just saying.
Because I think it's because I feel so liberated to feel like it's a part of myself and that it's a part of my identity. Because it was something like I've been repressing. And it's I relate it to being gay because like you repress being gay and then there's that coming out moment and you don't get to come out as Black, but
Right.
But you have that realization of yourself. That's that liberating freedom moment that you feel like, oh, I'm Black, and you're proud to say that you're Black. It's that moment, related to being gay when you say, I'm gay, I'm proud to be gay, and you vocalize those words, it solidifies who you are as a person. And
knowing who you are is a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Really knowing who you are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And expressing it no matter what.
Right. Unapologetically. Yes.
That's it.
Unapologetically
Black.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, Hysik, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
It was great talking to you.
Getting to know you even deeper.
Yes, because it's we knew you, but now we know you. Even better.
Or we'll have deeper conversations.
Oh yeah. Behind the more questions. I know that's what we're coming.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. I'm so happy to share this experience with you and with everyone else. Sure.
So we just want to say thank you again for joining us, joining Matthew, myself, and Hysik on Cheer New York, My Black Experience.
See you next time.
See you next time.